Haglar. He is no stranger to the role of a contender who nobody wanted. But today, Marvin stands alone. He is the only undisputed champion in the world. For 7 long years, Marvin dreamt of stepping into the ring with a middleweight champion. Those days are over. Today, Marvelous Marvin is the most feared middleweight in the world. He is the possessor of the WBA and WBC crowns and the most powerful punching combinations in boxing. But now a new role. Marvin steps into the ring with his title on the line. Tonight, the first title defense of Marvelous Marvin Haglar. HBO Sports presents World Championship Boxing. A middleweight championship bout between Marvin Haglar and #1 contender Fulgencio Obelmejias. Live from the Boston Garden in Boston, Massachusetts, HBO Sports presents World Championship Boxing. First, the scheduled 6-round welterweight bout between up-and-coming Davey Moore and Felix Nance. And then the main event, a scheduled 15-round middleweight championship bout between the undisputed WBA, WBC middleweight champion of the world, Marvelous Marvin Haglar, and the #1 ranked WBA, WBC contender, Fulgencio Obelmejias. Hello, everybody. I'm Barry Tompkins, and it is a pleasure to share these microphones with the welterweight champion of the world, Sugar Ray Leonard, and also our expert analyst, Larry Merchant. Sugar Ray, let me ask you, first of all, it has been 19 years since there's been a championship fight here at Boston Garden. Place literally sold out all the way up to the rafters up there. You have been in this kind of situation before. There's a real electricity about a fight like this.
Barry, you can feel the intensity of the fight. I mean, the crowd, you can pretty much put yourself in his place. And the way Marvin has conditioned himself for this particular fight, you might see a dynamite fight.
Everybody talks about how hard Marvin Haglar works, that he really puts as much time into training as he does in the ring during the actual fight itself. What's going through his mind at this juncture now? We're still probably a half hour, 45 minutes away from that fight. What are you thinking about in the locker room at this point?
At this stage now, it's been such a long road for Marvin to, let's say, capture the middleweight crown, and he wants to retain that. And after we saw a few clips on the tube was that who wants to fight a guy like that? He's awesome, and he's going to prove himself tonight again.
Well, we've got a lot to tell you about both Marvin Haglar and the challenger, Fulgencio Obelmejias. But before we get to that, we have a 6-round fight between Davey Moore and Felix Nance. And with us, Larry Merchant, who has had an opportunity to be around Davey Moore. Larry, a couple of words about Davey Moore. Relax as time goes on. As we mentioned, still down the road, the middleweight championship fight between Marvin Haglar and this is Haglar's dressing room here, and you can see police out in front. I guess the champion just wants to be alone at this juncture and just get his thoughts together all by himself.
Concentration, it makes your performance. But I prefer to have that guard in the ring with me.
That's right. Man's about 85 years old. I don't think he can handle it. I think I can handle it. I'm a devout coward.
One sort of baptism under fire as a professional.
Here's a look inside Fulgencio Obelmejias. He looks rather calm right now, but you have to know there's a little bit of apprehension going on in his mind.
Oh, there has to be. He's a hero at home, and he knows fully well if he wins this fight, he could run for president.
If confidence is any kind of a factor in the man's winning a fight, he had said long before he ever even signed a contract to fight Marvin Haglar that if I ever get a Haglar in the ring, Venezuela's going to have a new champion.
Well, he looks lean.
Pretty good size, 6'1". We've got a lot to tell you about this man. Fulio Bell is what he has come to be called here in the United States. Fulgencio Obelmejias, unquestionably quite a mouthful. I haven't kicked it yet today, but I'm working on it.
You know, all of South America is watching for this fight. They had an outstanding middleweight champion for many years, and Carlos Monzon didn't lose a fight for about 12 years. And maybe they think that they have another successor to Monzon here.
We come to the fourth round.
Fighting some guy you really don't know anything about. I always would have to think that there's got to be just that little man in the back of your head that says, what if?
That's true. Every time you step in the ring, you say, what if that punch lands? But Dave Moore looked quite impressive.
Well, we await the start now of the Marvin Haglar, Fulgencio Obelmejias. I want to make that point clear again. We will call him Fully Obel. There's no question about that. Obelmejias not going to last. He is the guy that comes into the fight. He has won 30 straight fights. He's won 28 of them by knockout. On the other side, you got Marvin Haglar. Everybody here in Boston knows Marvin Haglar. Everybody in the United
lands. But Dave Moore looked quite impressive.
Well, we await the start now of the Marvin Haglar, Fulgencio Obelmejias. I want to make that point clear again. We will call him Fully Obel. There's no question about that. Obelmejias not going to last. He is the guy that comes into the fight. He has won 30 straight fights. He's won 28 of them by knockout. On the other side, you got Marvin Haglar. Everybody here in Boston knows Marvin Haglar. Everybody in the United States is aware of what he is all about. And he's fighting a guy that's really an unknown quantity. And I would think, as the champion, that has got to be a very difficult task. You'd rather fight somebody who you know something about.
Really, that's true. I mean, when I step into the ring, and I'm quite sure Marvin feels the same way. He comes in as his champion, and he's especially fighting at home. He's fighting what a lot of the boxing critics would say a nobody because no one has seen him on TV. But I'm quite sure Marvin's thinking in the back of his mind, could this guy do it?
Almost one of those darned if you do and darned if you don't kind of situations. If you win, people say, well, you fought a hamburger. And if you lose, people say, well, you lost to a hamburger.
That's true.
How good are you? We got a lot to tell you about Marvin Haglar. But Marvin Haglar himself is really only one in a long series of great middleweights. Let's go back now and visit with some of the former champions in this division. In 1940, the middleweight crown belonged to Tony Zale. His reign began the glamour years of the division. Then in 1947, he lost his title to the flamboyant Rocky Graziano. Tony Zale won it back 1 year later. The Frenchman Marcel Cerdan put an end to Tony's career. Then along came the controversial Raging Bull. Jake LaMotta was a terror in and out of the ring. His life became the ideal Hollywood script. But perhaps none wore the crown like Sugar Ray Robinson. Pound for pound, the greatest fighter in history. But tonight we present the newest champion, Marvin Haglar, in his first title defense against Fulgencio Obelmejias. Live from Boston Garden in Boston, Massachusetts, it's the main event. A World Middleweight Championship fight between Marvin Haglar and the #1 contender, Fulgencio Obelmejias. Sugar Ray Leonard, let's talk a little bit about Marvin Haglar. He's a guy that comes into this fight. People for years have been saying this is the best middleweight around. He didn't get his chance. I would think that has really got to be very, very frustrating, and he's got to be just a little bit angry at this point.
I think Marvin Haglar holds a bit of bitterness about him because we've seen some of the earlier clips of Marvin Haglar's fights. And as awesome as he is, there are very few middleweights that would like to tangle with him. And now he's the champion, and he's going to the ring with so much confidence and retain his title. This guy is really aiming to show the people that he is the best middleweight around.
Did you go through the same thing when you were up and coming? Were people just trying to duck you because everybody knows how good Sugar Ray Leonard is?
No, they didn't want to duck me. Everyone wanted to fight me, especially now. I got middleweights want to fight me, light heavies. Probably Larry Holmes want to fight me soon enough. Because once you reach a certain status, as far as exposure, everyone wants to get to you because they know you're the big bucks.
Whatever way you look at it, Marvin Haglar really is quite a story. And we had an opportunity to catch up with Marvin Haglar at his training camp just down the road in Provincetown, Massachusetts, earlier this week. This is Cape Cod, a summer resort in the dead of winter. Even today, as Marvin Haglar prepares for his first title defense, he remembers his frustrating past.
Nobody wanted me, and I couldn't understand why, managing trainers, you told me, well, Marvin, the way that you are, nobody wants to fight you. You're left-handed, because you're knocking everybody out. None of these contenders want to take the opportunity.
Joe Frazier, I think he paraphrased it beautifully when he says, down in Philadelphia. We were fighting one of his boys. It happened to be Willie Monroe, one of his sparring partners right now. He's in trouble with you, Marvin. He says, you get 3 strikes against you. He says, you're black, you're a southpaw. He says, you can fight.
For 5 long years, Marvin fought anyone gutsy enough to climb through the ropes. In this same Boston Garden on November 11th, 1978, the unfortunate opponent was Willie Warren. After his 43rd win and his 33rd knockout, Marvin pleaded for his shot with then middleweight champion Hugo Coro.
Come on, Hugo Coro! I'm ready! I'm ready, Hugo Coro!
But Hugo Coro never did give Marvin his shot. Instead, he had to face the stark realities of the game of boxing.
There was a big thing about politics, I guess, that was involved in boxing, who you know or whatever, and you know, because it wasn't your status and your record, because I had all that. And the fight there with Doug Dimmons, it was good. I think that was maybe my 30th fight, believe it or not, before I got on national television. And Doug Dimmons had been in there with Sugar Ray Seals and